Hello, in this video we'll walk through the Module 7 project. Before we get started, let's go to the Excel file, make sure it contains your name in the documentation sheet. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this file and change its name. So File, Save As, and then I'll make sure that the last digit reads as 2. You don't have to enter .xlx at the end. And by default, this one goes to downloads. You might like to save it somewhere else. In my case, I like to save my file in documents folder, so it's easy to locate. So yes, now I have the file. What we want to do next is go through the instructions and follow them. In this worksheet, we are going to basically work with pivot tables. So Tiana Morales is the Director of Customer Call Center for Pierce Software. And for the past 3 months, she has been keeping track of support calls and she needs your help for analyzing the data. In the call type column, she needs to list the type of call corresponding to the code in call code column. So she's asking us to go to E5 and we have to enter a formula using HLOOKUP function to look up the call type according to call code. Now we have to use a structured reference to look up the value in call code column and retrieve the value of row 2 of the call type table. So let's go ahead and do this. So basically, here's a call code and every call code refers to some call type. We need to fill in the data in call type based on the call code. This type of situation calls for the use of either VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. So that depends on where is the data where we have to look up from. So this one says the value is in the range A3 through F4 in survey question worksheet. So let's go to the survey question worksheet. And here is our data. A3 through F4. Since this data is organized horizontally, we will use HLOOKUP and not VLOOKUP. See how every call code is in the row 3 and the corresponding call type is in the row 4. So let's go ahead back to the same sheet, customer call log, and we need to enter an HLOOKUP function in call type. So I would go to formulas or just click on FX. Then you can type HLOOKUP, go, and hit OK. In the HLOOKUP, the first value is lookup value. It means what is it that we are looking for, the input. In this case, it is the call code, this particular call code. And when you click this, notice how it has come up as at call code, that is the entire column name, instead of D5. Normally, if this was just a range of data, not an Excel table, you would see by selecting this cell, it should come up as D5. But this is an Excel table. That's why you see at call code, which is the column name. This is what it means by use structured reference. The next thing we need to enter is table array. It means where is the full range of values from where we need to find. In our case, it was in the survey questions worksheet. So let's go to the survey questions worksheet and then I'm going to select A3 through F4. That's my table array. Now row number. So which row do we want? That question can be answered from here. So since our table array is this, in the selected part, the first row is call code. The second row is call type. There are 2 rows in this table, row 1, row 2. So row 1 should match with our input value. Row 2 is what we want back. So instead of this, we'll just type the number 2. Okay, the next thing we have is range lookup. It means, do we want an exact match or approximate match? If you look down here, it says the closest match will be available if you type true or just don't do anything. If you find an exact match, you have to say false. Now let's see if the instruction says anything about it. So the instruction here says, because each call type covers a range of values, find an approximate match. So for approximate match, we type true. And then fill the formula into the range if necessary. So let's go ahead and hit enter at this point. Our lookup value is the input value, that is this call code. Directly click on 7. For table array, go to the survey questions and select this whole thing. Row index is 2 because we want call type back. And then since we want approximate match, we hit true. Then go ahead and hit OK. By default, if it's an Excel table like this, it should fill in the formula to the rest of the rows by itself. So how do I know this is an Excel table, by the way? If you click anywhere on the table, table design option should appear. That tells you this is an Excel table, not range. Well, that completes our step 1. Let's go to step 2. It says customers can rate their service representatives by completing a 4-question survey at the end of each call. Tiana entered the scores in columns question 1, 2, 3, 4 of the calls table. So we need to know where is the calls table. She wants to calculate average rating for each call in the average column. So I click here, go to table design. It says calls here. It means this is the calls table. Okay. And we have the average column is right now empty. We have to enter a formula in cell J5 using the average function and structured cell references. Again, instead of using the name of a cell, you will use the name of the column to average values in the question 1 through 4 and then fill the formula in this range if necessary. So we expect that by default, if we use structured reference, Excel will fill in the formulas to rest of the columns in the rest of the rows in the table. If it does not, you may have to copy the formula. So it's easy. Let's get ahead and do this. So average. And then I'll click this whole range. And it came out calls. So let's do this again real quick. Make sure everything is correct. So average function, then I'm just going to select these questions. So it says calls at question 1 through question 4. It means, looks like it is taking the structured reference from the calls table, and it has also populated the data automatically. So there is no need to fill in the formula. That takes care of our task 2 here. So in number 3, it says in the range L4 through N13, Tiana set up an area to summarize some data about the service representatives handling the customer support calls. So here is L4 through N13. Now notice once you select this range, nothing appears in the top saying table design. It means this is not an Excel table, this is a data range. Here, if you enter any formula, you will have to fill in the formula manually or copy it to the rest of the cells. So first she wants to count the number of each service representative handled. So for this, you need to go to cell M5 and enter a formula using COUNTIF function. So, and again, use the structured reference to the service rep column. So for counting total numbers, you want to reference service rep column in call table. So we want to refer to this column. Okay, let's do this. So first of all, we have to get the COUNTIF function. You can go to insert function and COUNTIF. In my case, it's right here. If it's not, then type and go. Then let's see what COUNTIF function does. In the COUNTIF function, you need to specify two things. One is a range and one is a criteria. This is different from count function. So if you are looking here, basically, we need to enter only the calls for Barry, not for any other sales or service rep. So basically, you provide the range wherever the data is for all the service reps, and the criteria will be which one do you want to match. So the range is, in our case, service rep. Well, you are selecting, only select the names. Do not select the header row. So Wagner, and go down the list until you get the last one. Going back up here, see how it says calls at service rep? It means it has just selected the column and not only the data in the column. So this is a structured reference. It doesn't say whatever column name and row numbers. Then again, criteria is you have to match whichever rep you want in this row. In this row, we want only Barry. So let's go ahead and select this row. So L5, and this is what you can use. So it will search for L5, that is Barry, in all of this range, every service rep, and every time Barry's name come up, it will do a counting. So let's do this. So that's Barry. Now you can go ahead and drag this formula down. See, when you did this, it also accidentally carried the formatting. So we don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. The next part of the instruction says fill the formula into the range M6 through M13 without formatting. So that's what I was supposed to do. So instead of just dragging this like I did previously, I need to copy the formula. I can right click, copy. Then when I go to paste, I would do either a right click, and out of all of these, I'm going to see the one which says formula without formatting. So either just the formula, that will be okay. Or another way to do the same thing will be, I go to paste here and look for formulas and no formatting, okay? So either way, you can right click or you can go to the paste up here. That part's done. That takes care of number 3. Let's do number 4. Number 4 says Tiana also wants to average the combined scores of each employee. In cell N9, that is the cell, enter a formula using average if function and structure reference to the service rep and average columns in the calls table to average the scores. So what we need is, this time we are going to use average if, and for every employee or service rep like Barry, we want the average. Okay, and then take average of this average. So let's go ahead. Once again, I can click this FX or go to formulas and then find whichever function I'm looking for. For me, if this is visible, that's the easiest way. Otherwise, you can go to the formulas tab and use FX or insert function here. So which one do I want? I want average if. So type it. Go, it will appear. Make sure you take the one which says average if, not the one which ends in F. So not multiples. So average if asks for 3 things. The first one is the range and the criteria, just like your COUNTIF function. So the criteria is going to be Barry, their name. The range is where do I match Barry's name. So go back to the service rep, where you match the criteria. And the next thing is, since you are going to calculate the averages, which data should you calculate the average of? In our case, we wanted to calculate the average of this average column. So in the average range, select only the data, not the header, for this whole thing. So go ahead and select it. It should say calls average. Let's go back to the instruction before we hit OK. So it says use structure reference for service rep. We have done that. and average. So we have also used structured references here in the average range. And for Berry, that is cell L5. Okay. Now go ahead and hit OK. So you will see the first one is filled. The next part of instruction 4 says fill the formula into the range N6 through N13 without formatting. So I would once again copy the formula. So right click copy, or you can go to up there and then do copy and select where you want to paste. Once again right click and then paste only the formula, not the formatting. That completes part number 4. Let's match up if our data is matching to the expected output. Yeah, all of that is same as expected. Let's go to number 5. Number 5 talks about go to the call type by rep worksheet. So that's a different worksheet. By the way, keep saving your work by hitting on this pink icon on top. Let's go to the call type by rep. Tiana wants to compare the call data by type for each service rep. In cell A3, so A3, insert a pivot table based on the calls table. Use rep calls as the name of the pivot table. So how do we insert a pivot table? We can go to insert and then you should have an option here, pivot table. Now enter or select a table or range on which it is going to be based. So it says the calls table. So I'm going to go to customer calls data, and then either I can just select the calls table like this or just type the name. If you knew, you can just type the name calls. Otherwise, since I selected the entire table with its header, this name automatically appeared. And for location, I am going to do it in an existing sheet because it is asked that we have to do this in cell A3 of an existing sheet, which is call type by rep. Then it says use rep calls as the name of the pivot table and display names as okay. So the rest of the things are talking about editing the pivot table. So in here, you need to have where is the data coming from the calls table. You want it in a new worksheet or existing? We want it in an existing worksheet. The location is specified. And nothing is said about data model, so leave it blank. Go ahead and hit OK. This is your pivot table. First thing is edit the name of the pivot table. So you can select anywhere on this pivot table. Go to pivot table analyze. Somewhere up top, you should be able to see the name of the pivot table. And the name that we want to have is called rep calls. So type the name here, match it correctly. It's rep calls. And once you have it, you will see that's the name of your pivot table. The next thing we need to do is make the pivot table based on these things given here. It says display the service rep name as column headings. So if you click on this area anywhere, you will see pivot table fields appear on the side. Service goes to column headings and call types as row heading and values. Okay, so call type goes to rows, call type goes to values, and service rep goes to columns. Okay, call type as row and values. The next thing we are supposed to do is apply light yellow pivot style medium 12 to pivot table. Okay, so select anywhere, go to pivot table design, and we are looking to apply light yellow pivot style medium 12. So let's say medium 12, it's 25. Okay, light yellow pivot style medium 12. This is the one. So match it. Now that we have applied the style, we need to center the data in B4 through K10 to make it easier to read. So let's go to B4, that is the name, all the way to K10. So make sure we have highlighted B4, highlighted K10. You go to the Home tab, and here is Center Alignment. So click on Center. Now all of these names should appear so that they are centered.